Sorry.
No, you're good.
Gotta have the mics unmuted
Yes,
for people to talk.
exactly. People unmute. There's a lot of people that come in and out of this room, so it's
This
hard to
one-
keep track.
This one was on me. I was in here earlier and I muted them.
That's okay. It's Christmas week. We're all thinking different things. But welcome back to 2822 Sports Night, brought to you by Hyundai. I'm here with Ricky Turner. I'm Elena Locido. A couple of things to talk about today. We had NFL this weekend, on Saturday as well. I think that's when this is the time of year where we start getting those Saturday
Yes.
games. But we also had some college football on Saturday. But first, we're going to start about the really big news that came out today that you told me about, and my jaw dropped, was that DK Metcalf is now suspended for the rest of the regular season for an altercation he had with a Lions fan in Detroit at yesterday's game. I believe it happened in the second quarter of the game. And we are not able to show you the video, unfortunately, because we can show it to you. Yeah.
Cannot break our NFL policy.
No, we can't break the NFL policy. We're only allowed to show that stuff on the air and studio for our newscasts and stuff. But basically, you see him getting into it with one of the fans, which you told me he's had an incident with before, too, I think.
Reportedly, this isn't the first time these two have met. He reportedly, I think, filed a complaint while he was with Seattle, filing that these two have had a history and they don't like each other. But they met again for, I don't know how. I'm not sure if this guy likes DK Metcalf, has followed him around. I don't know if they've had, that big of a history, but allegedly they meet again here in Detroit, and it's going to cost the Steelers 2 games without DK Metcalf, and also DK Metcalf 2 games without pay. He will forfeit.
Oh, wow.
The suspension stands. Metcalf is going to forfeit his $556,000 salary for the 2 games. And the NFL did put out a statement saying that Metcalf's actions, they violated the league policy that specifies players may not enter the stands or otherwise confront fans at any time on game day. And if a player makes unnecessary physical contact with the fan in any way that constitute unsportsmanlike conducts or presents crowd control issues and or risk of injury, he will be held accountable. Now, I would imagine that Metcalf he plans to appeal the suspension. So we'll see where that gets him, and that will, I think, be heard by the commissioner, Roger Goodell. So ideally, maybe he gets it reduced to 1 game, but again, I'm going to be honest. I think you were as well. I was shocked he got suspended. If there was anything, I'd say a game. I did not expect him to be done for the year, as the NFL, I guess, decide to lay down the hammer on this one.
Yeah, and just if you haven't seen the video, basically he grabs the collar of the fan. They're talking. He grabs the collar, and then he kind of pushes him away. At first, I saw a lot of people saying he punched him, but for legal uses, we're going to say he shoved him because that's what the report said. So that is basically what happened, and you see DK walking away. You had told me that basically DK had said that the fan had said some racial slur and some misogynistic comment about his mother. Obviously, I cannot say either of those words on here, but pretty bad ones, and, would definitely ignite the kind of response you see by DK. The fan had said that the reason that the only thing he said was just DK Metcalf's full name, which I don't know why that would really, maybe there's a backstory to that, but I can't see how that would really cause a physical altercation. But again, if he appeals this, I think, again, the NFL, though, they're just really honing in on the sportsman-like behavior and sportsmanship of these players. Before the first snap of the NFL season, too, Jalen Carter suspended for spitting on Dak Prescott. So right from the beginning, they do that. Then Jamar Chase gets fined and suspended for spitting on Jalen Ramsey. Just a lot of suspensions. And then this one, obviously, you can just tell right away that something was going to happen out of this. I thought it was going to be a fine, maybe a suspension, but like you said, shocking that it's this much, considering we don't really know the full context of what happened and what went down.
Yes, and that was probably going to be the nature of this case, because eventually it's going to come down to a he said. Both sides of the story are going to obviously try and paint the picture that the other one was at fault, but ultimately, again, it's on Metcalf to not retaliate in that fashion. Now, again, as you mentioned, Metcalf, his side came out and said that Ryan Kennedy, who is the fan involved, used a racial slur and a misogynistic slur to describe Metcalf's mother. And Ryan Kennedy, who's I think is a Michigan law firm, responded for him, saying that Kennedy denied any categorical use of either of these terms. So now I think they stated specifically that these allegations are false, according to Sean Head and Sean Murphy of Head Murphy Law Firm. And the statement also said that Kennedy has experienced harassments, threats, and messages advocating violence since reports began circulating on social media that the allegations that Metcalf said about Kennedy were released. But yeah, if you haven't seen the video, basically it was a guy in a blue wig. My sister thought it was a girl at first. I'm like, no, that is a guy in a blue wig. And Tracy Wolfson, who was the CBS sideline reporter, stated that the fan Ryan Kennedy was holding a number 4 Pittsburgh jersey. He went over and the fan said something to him. Obviously, she said Metcalf did not like what he said, and you saw the swipe. And yeah, I wouldn't categorize it as a punch.
No, yeah.
I thought it was more of he grabbed him by and sort of pushed him away. I didn't see a punch. Now, again, we'll see what happens when Metcalf appeals this, but I didn't see a punch. But
I didn't either.
We'll see what happens with this. It's certainly going to be interesting from the Steelers' point of view, because you look at this game, it was such a momentous win, and now you look at it, you're still in control of your own destiny now. If you're Pittsburgh, with Baltimore's loss against the Patriots, you're in control of your own destiny. You basically, if you win on next Sunday against the Cleveland Browns, you're AFC North champions. If you lose, ultimately, you're going to be without Metcalf for the deciding game if Baltimore wins next Saturday, because if Baltimore loses Saturday, none of this matters. Baltimore will be eliminated from the playoffs and Pittsburgh will win the AFC North. But say Pittsburgh loses next Sunday to Cleveland, where they haven't won since Big Ben retired, so it's still possible, despite Nick saying there's no way they lose to Cleveland. I'm like, you'd be surprised. But say they lose to Cleveland, then it's a winner-take-all matchup against Baltimore without your star wide receiver and without really any big name wideout out there right now, because you have basically Adam Thielen, maybe Calvin Austin if his hamstring heals up, and I don't know, Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson. That'll be your wide receivers in maybe a winner-take-all game in 2 weeks at Baltimore. But right now, I'm sure their focus is all on Cleveland. But this is a huge loss for Pittsburgh, because there's few players on this roster that you can't live without, and DK Metcalf is right now one of them, because they really don't have a suitable replacement for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, he's a playmaker, and he's such a presence on a team. I was talking with one of my coworkers about this situation. They're like, is this guy like a big player? I go, one of the best in the NFL. He's just so good. And when he gets going on offense, he's so good after the catch. He's just a massive wide receiver that's also really fast, and he just sparks everything on offense. He's a big presence, and I know he's a big target for a guy like Aaron Rodgers. That's the guy you want down the field. And without him, like you said, it's a huge loss, especially when you are right at the cusp of getting a playoff, securing a spot in the playoffs. But you told me this is not going into the postseason, right? It's just a 2-game suspension, and that's it?
Yeah,
okay.
2 games. We'll see what happens.
But 2 big games, too.
2 really big games, both against division rivals.
Yeah, that's just such a huge loss. And, I mean, again, we don't know the full context of the situation, but
I don't think we ever will.
Yeah, honestly, unless we get that audio, I don't think we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just, that's hard to see, because whether you're a fan of the team or not, you want to see the best players on the field. And I think if you're an opposing team too, you want to play the best of the best. You want to go up against the best opponents. And especially with 2 divisional games, I always say you never know with a divisional game. Like you said, looks like they're going to beat the Browns, but also the Browns put up a pretty good game against the Bills. They lost by just 3 points in that game. And that was that in Cleveland?
Yes.
Yeah, it was in Cleveland too. Yeah, so just divisional games, the opponents so well. You really never know. It's always up in the air. So, but yeah, just a huge loss for this Steelers team at a really, really important point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, you're two games right now away from winning this division, and now you have to go in it undermanned at the wide receiver position, a position that you were arguably were already undermanned at going into this season and going into these games was the wide receiver position, because you just had DK Metcalf. They brought in some veteran wide receiver help and Adam Thielen. And they also activated Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and Aaron Rodgers just seemed a lot more comfortable these last couple weeks with Valdez-Scantling and Thielen both in the lineup. So we'll see how Pittsburgh adjusts. But DK was a guy that very high usage. In terms of their wide receivers, he was the guy they went to most often. He's second on the team in receptions. He's a guy who can fly down the football field. He's a guy who, again, they incorporated a lot of back shoulder passes, incorporated a lot of streaks into this offense just based off of him and his physical size. They also liked him across the middle because when he gets going in the middle of the field, it's hard for people to catch him because he's so big and so hard to bring down. And, you probably definitely planning on not having him for this game, but we'll see how the appeal goes. Maybe he gets reduced to 1 game, but it's going to be, again, a lot tougher now going into against a Cleveland team that does have a really good defense, that does have some really good corners. They did get ran on a lot last week by James Cook, but you mentioned they held this Buffalo offense to just 23 points. They really, really control this Buffalo offense that has been humming all year long, and they really held them in check and had a chance to win. But in the end, their Cleveland's offense couldn't get going. And if you remember the last time Cleveland and Pittsburgh played, I think DK Metcalf did have a big game in that matchup. I know he had a touchdown. Pittsburgh ended up winning that game 23-9. But yeah, DK Metcalf in that game had 4 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah. So those certainly aren't easy numbers to replace, especially with the players you have in that room. But now you just got to focus on what's ahead and see if you can keep this run game going that was really effective last week against the Detroit Lions. You're going to really need it a lot more going into this game against the Cleveland Browns, who have a new QB since you played them last time. But unfortunately, Quinshon Judkins did go out with an injury, so they won't have him, which is a huge loss for Cleveland as well.
Yeah, and at least your running game was really strong in this game too. You have that to rely on. Like you said, if the Ravens lose, they clinch a spot, and they're playing the Packers, a team both teams are kind of banged up as far as their quarterback rooms go. Lamar Jackson with a back injury, Jordan Love, a concussion, so we don't know if he'll be back or not. So this game could go either way. Green Bay also without Micah Parsons, but they do seem like the stronger contender in this game. But again, injuries have plagued the NFL, and you never know what's going to happen with those games. We'll take a quick break. After that, we're going to kind of recap. Besides the DK Metcalf situation, we're going to go more in depth into this wild ending of this Steelers game and how they came out with that victory. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us this night on 2822 Sports Night. We're going to recap that crazy Lions-Steelers game from last night in Detroit. This game was, for the Steelers, knowing that the Steelers won, it's kind of everything you want in a game. The climax at the end, of course, that crazy play by Jared Goff passing to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who laterals it to Jared Goff, who gets it in the end zone, but is called back for a offensive pass interference, and the Steelers win it because there's no time left on the clock. But again, that was just the very end of this wild game, but it was just kind of really back and forth-ish, I would say, throughout the game. And the Steelers' run game looking really well. Obviously, there was that situation with DK. He did not get ejected from the game, though, so he still played the rest of the game. But we just talked about how he was suspended. But Ricky, what are your thoughts on yesterday's game, the wild game that was yesterday?
Well, again, they won. That's always the important part.
Yeah.
You rather discuss the flaws in a win than a loss. But I think the story of this game was really how the Steelers were able to control control this game on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They held a Detroit offense that was 5th in the NFL in rushing to just I believe it was 19 total yards on the ground. Jahmyr Gibbs was a non-factor in this one in the run game. I think he had 10 receptions for 60 yards and a TD receiving the ball. But for the most part, I mean, if Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get 10 receptions, you're probably expecting around 100 yards. I'll take 6 yards a pop from Jahmyr Gibbs catching the ball, because obviously catching the ball and running the ball are two different. If he was running the ball and getting 6 yards a carry, that's a whole different thing. But I thought Pittsburgh up front dominated this game.
Yeah.
Derek Harmon, getting him back was a huge boost. You also look at Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. They were pushing the pocket on Jared Goff all day long. They weren't allowing the run game. I thought Alex Highsmith had a heck of a ball game. Jack Sawyer had some big stops on the first drive, both in the run game. But I thought the story of this game was stopping the run and also running the ball well, as you mentioned. Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell. I think combined, those two ran for over 100 and I think it was 190 yards. They ran for over 200. Both of these guys had combined 100 total yards from scrimmage. I think a better stat is they had like 27 combined touches for over 270 yards. Those two really controlled the ball game. Jalen Warren had 2 45-yard rushes, and both of those running to the left side, which has been hampered by injuries this year for the Steelers. Isaac Seumalo missed this game with a triceps injury, and Broderick Jones has been out for the last month with a stinger in his neck. And they ran to those two sides twice, and Jalen Warren got loose both of those times, running for 45 yards TDs. But I think both sides of the ball had their respective halves. The offense holding the Lions to 10 points in the first half was brilliant, with great coaching by Terrell Austin, great execution by this defense, and the offensive play at the end of the half that really swung this thing in Pittsburgh's direction was the Kenneth Gainwell play down the field, and that's one of the best catches you'll ever see, and that's by a running back.
Oh, was that the one where he's on the ground?
Yes.
Kind of that was crazy.
He drew pass interference, which was a feat in itself, as you're seeing it right here. He catches the ball, doesn't hit the ground, has the presence of mind to get up and run in the end zone, and all of a sudden, Pittsburgh ties the game at 10 going into the half, and then they double dipped. They got the ball back. They unfortunately fumbled on that first drive of the second half. I believe it was Darnell Washington who fumbled at the 5-yard line. That could have been big, but Pittsburgh capitalized on a blitz right there from Kyle Duggar, getting the safety. And then I think they got the ball back, and that was one of Jalen Warren's 45-yard rushing touchdowns. And then he had another one, I think a drive or two later in that ball game as well. But Pittsburgh really controlled that ball game late with the offense. I know the Lions got back into it. Chris Boswell for once was not automatic.
Yeah.
And that as soon as he missed that field goal, I'm like, oh no, they're going to go the other way. They're going to go however many yards and tie this ball game. Luckily they did not, but Chris Boswell clanked it off the right upright, and I was not. I was worried there, because usually when Chris Boswell misses a kick, it's a sign that things weren't meant to be.
Yeah.
But luckily the defense held up there, stopping Amon-Ra St. Brown. But I think a play that gets overlooked was a play or two before that, or 3 plays before that. Patrick Queen tracked down, I think it was Isaac Tesla, tackled him short of the 2-yard line, and then they got the offensive pass interference that moved him back 10 yards, and then they got the false start after that moved him back 5 yards. So, I mean, they were in position to win that game, but Pittsburgh defensively did not give up. They're a very stout team. They have a lot of guys with high motors, high effort players, and luckily that they were able to pull this off and pulled off what I thought was a really unlikely win, and now possibly being able to clinch the AFC North with a win next week against the Cleveland Browns, with maybe not even needing that win, because if the Ravens lose Saturday night, it's game, set, match. The Pittsburgh Steelers win the AFC North.
Yeah, and this was really a playoff game for the Lions specifically.
Yes.
They have now jumped down to a 6% chance of going to the playoffs, whereas if they won, it would be a 41%. So this was a big game for them. All things were on the line for them in this game. They were going at it the hardest they could. And for the Steelers to stop a team with so much to gain from a win like this is huge. And obviously the Steelers, they obviously need to win the rest of their games, but they're not as dangling by as thin of a thread as the Lions are. So for them to come out and, still stand their ground in Detroit's last home game of the season too, that's huge. It says, especially for playoffs too, where the Steelers, they may have the home field advantage for one or two games, probably.
Probably just one.
Probably just one.
I think at this point, because I think the third seed is Jacksonville, and they're already at 11 wins. And with the way they're playing, you probably aren't going to get that 3 seed. But yeah, a home playoff game does make all the difference, though, and especially in a wide open AFC, because I still think this is anyone's conference. Because I really don't see a team that right now stands out above the rest and can control. Can control and is just the outright.
I agree.
The outright, I guess, favorite like years past in Kansas City. I don't see a team like that right now in the A. I think every team has their flaws, and if there's a year to get in the playoffs, and not having Kansas City in your way and not being a true favorite, this does bode well for a team like the Steelers, who on any given week can come out and play some good football, whether it's on the offensive or defensive sides of the ball.
Yeah. So obviously having a home field advantage for that first game is huge, but going into a hostile environment like Detroit on an away game, that's their last home game of the season, to pull off a win there, that gives a lot of confidence going into the postseason to hopefully, if you get past round one, to go into a different environment where you say, like you said, this is a really up in the air conference. The Broncos seemed like the
favorites,
the ones to beat, but then they just got beat by the Jaguars, who also, it's just, the AFC is just so unpredictable this year. You don't really know, like you said, who is the front runner, because there is no front runner. The NFC, I think, is more solid, and the Bears and a couple other teams there, and the Eagles potentially too. But yeah, I feel like there's a couple more stronger teams there, but the AFC is kind of up in the air. So for the Steelers, this is a big confidence boost win, in my opinion. Obviously, they beat the Dolphins, which is a team that's struggling anyways, but to beat the Lions, who were they the number 1 seed last year?
Yes.
Yeah, for the number 1 seed last year, that's huge. And towards the end of the season, when you're playing your best, where you're supposed to be playing your best football, to go in there and have a statement win like that, that's huge.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of credit. A guy who's taken some criticism after that Bills loss, Mike Tomlin. This Mike Tomlin, at least over these last 2 games, he's prone to being more aggressive. I thought he was aggressive, and he was aggressive when he needed to be on weighty downs when they were driving, going for it on 4th down near midfield, and they converted on all their 4th downs for the most part. The tush push near the end zone. They knew going into this game Detroit was going to be aggressive, and they were. Their second offensive drive, they went down in the red zone. What do? They go for it on 4th and go up the 2. The defense holds up, and that was big, but Mike Tomlin, I think, has this team playing good football, and I think the biggest difference right now with this team this year rather than last year, very similar roster construction, is the QB play. Last year, Russell Wilson was trending in the downward direction right now. Aaron Rodgers right now, he seems to be trending in the right direction. He had a brief portion in the middle again in that Bills game against the Chargers, against the Packers, where he struggled. But ever since Adam Thielen got activated, Marquez Valdes-Scantling got signed to the active roster, this looks like a whole different offense. This looks like an offense that is playing with more confidence. Aaron Rodgers is playing better. This offensive line is pass blocking well. They're dominating in the run game. This is not the, I look at it, this is not the same team that we saw down the stretch last year. This defense, they're hot and they're cold, but I mean, they shut down a Lions offense that was averaging 30 and held them to 10 in the first half, and they really got after Jared Goff. And remember, they were not healthy either. They were missing T.J. Watt and Nick Herbig. They're top 2 sack leaders in this ball game, and they still got to Jared Goff a decent amount, and not relying on T.J. Watt and Nick Herbig. But this was a big confidence boosting win, and this is a team that I think in Detroit was like 12-0 after a loss under I don't remember the last time this team's lost 2 games in a row, but there's a stat out there. They have not lost 2 games in a row in a very, very long time. And for Mike Tomlin to be able to do that with a team fighting for their playoff lives and basically eliminating a team 2 weeks in a row from the playoffs, because they eliminated Miami the week before, who was on a 4-game win streak despite them struggling in the cold. And then this week, now the Detroit's down to 9%, needing Green Bay to lose out and them to win out to really even have a chance at making the playoffs. But yeah, this was a big win for them, and if you're a Steelers fan, you're looking forward to next week and having the possibility of clinching the division at the Cleveland Browns, a place you've struggled in. But you certainly have a lot more confidence going into this game, knowing that you have Aaron Rodgers playing probably the best football he has all season, compared to Russell Wilson last year, who was really, really struggling down the stretch, and this offense couldn't find any rhythm.
Yeah, and earlier in the season, this was a pretty new team as far as new faces to the team, a new quarterback, a new DK Metcalf coming in. You have a lot of new pieces and new faces coming in. So it's kind of a brand new team. They're still trying to figure it out. I think they've got it figured out now. I think it is, or at least pretty close to having it all figured out, because they seem to be meshing really well. The connection between all the players is going well. I think even with the coordinators, Mike Tomlin has seemed to get things, gotten things under control as well, like you said, because 2 weeks ago, people were wanting him to get fired. Now he turned it around and he showed them, hey, I'm not ready to leave right now. So just a really big win for them. It was a fun game to watch too. On a Sunday, so
stressful.
It's fun for me. Stressful for you. Did you think on that last play? Did you think it was a touchdown at first?
No, because of the fact he was stopped short of the goal line. I think that's the big. That play should have been blown dead.
Yeah.
That play, he had no forward momentum. And again, it was a good route by him. Oh, I shouldn't say that. He blatantly pushed off of Jalen Ramsey, but great on Ramsey for being able to sell that. But you could see the full extension and Amon-Ra sort of come back to the football, but Jalen Ramsey and Joey Porter basically gang tackled him. I thought he was short. I thought the play was dead because, again, there was no forward momentum. There was no chance he was moving forward again. And this game, to me, should have been blown dead there. But the fact that the refs let it go on, again, I guess you sort of have to in this type of scenario. But if that was the way they lost, that would have been a gut-wrenching loss.
Mm-hmm.
And the head referee, I think it was Carl Sheffers, if I'm not mistaken, when he said the call on the field is a touchdown, the place went berserk. No one heard him say, however, I think there was a pass interference call on the offense, and then again, they run the clock down because it was an offensive penalty, and they weren't going to get a chance at another play based off the fact that it was an offensive pass interference, and Pittsburgh was just going to run the clock out after that otherwise. But again, yeah, I thought he was short, and that's what Mike Tomlin said. Aaron Rodgers was pretty adamant about it. He said he read the head referee's mouth and saw him say short of the goal line. And we saw him say offensive pass interference, and I think Mike Tomlin echoed that same sentiment. As Mike Tomlin, I think, got his 200th career victory in this
Oh,
game
wow.
as well.
That was a great
So,
victory
yes,
to have.
I think he just moved into the top 10 or head coaches, and now he has his 200th 200th career victory under his belt either. So obviously, congratulations to him. But yeah, no, I didn't think that was I didn't think that was a TD. I think it was pretty clear he was short, but certainly again, one of the more hectic endings you will see in an NFL football game this season.
Yeah, I thought he was too, and then everything happened so quickly, and I was like,
And it
"Wait,
took
was
forever.
he?" It would forever. It was like it was in slow
Yeah.
motion. I was like, "What is going on?" And I saw this video too of Ravens fans at the
Yep, I
game
did see
yesterday, and they
that.
were all cheering and had no idea that it actually they thought that the Steelers lost that game, but they didn't. So I thought that was really funny too, that video that I saw. But yeah, it was just what a great way for Mike Tomlin to reach that milestone too with a win like this, right towards the end of the season, as they're looking to get that spot in the playoffs. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll probably continue talking about this game for a little bit and preview what they're going to be who they're going to be facing next in the Green Bay Packers. And then we're also going to recap the Eagles, who just won the NFC East title for the second year in a row. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 28-22 Sports Night, brought to you by Hyundai. We said we're going to recap the Packers. We're going to save that for tomorrow. That's a whole new topic of conversation that could last us a long time. So instead, we're going to move to the Eagles winning the NFC East title for the second year in a row. This is the first time an NFC East team has won back-to-back titles since the 2001 to 2024 seasons, where the Eagles won 4 times in a row. What kind of says a lot about this division in general and just how competitive it is, because that's the longest drought for a division winning back-to-back titles in history for the NFL by any division in the NFL. So it says a lot about the competition of this division. However, the competition wasn't that much this year, as the Eagles are now the only team in that division to be going to the playoffs, as the Cowboys got eliminated with the Eagles win to the Commanders on Saturday, the same win that brought the Eagles to winning that title. It was a 29-18 win over the Commanders, and it didn't seem like the best start at first. Will Shipley with the kickoff return, he fumbles it, Commanders recover it, and it just seemed to be, again, it's a divisional game. You don't really know what's going to happen in this game. Then there's this, so the special teams was kind of off for the day. Even Jake Elliott missing 3 field goals. 2 of them were back to back, which doesn't, we talk about Chris Boswell missing. That's one of them, but to do this in a game like this too is not the best. And he's been pretty good over the years too. So to miss those kinds of 3 field goals heading into the half was a kind of a sour taste the Eagles wanted to get out. And obviously in the second half, they really got things going. Saquon Barkley had a really good game yesterday with he just broke 1,000 yards on the season in Saturday's game. So another season of 1,000+ rushing yards, which is huge for him. He's obviously one of the best in the league and will go down as one of the best in the league. So having a really good game there. Jalen Hurts, again, another really good game. We saw him have that rough game against the Chargers where he had 5 turnovers, but since then against the Raiders and against the Commanders, he's really come back and, proven why he's the reigning Super Bowl MVP. But yeah, again, the Eagles, another year of winning this division and going into the postseason. I still think that they have a lot of work to do. That I don't think they're as complete of a team as, say, the Seahawks or the Bears. Bears obviously beating the Eagles. But I think they're headed in a good direction.
Yeah, this was certainly a big win for them, really much needed. But yeah, if you're an Eagles fan, you're still waiting for this team to put together two halves of football.
Mhm.
And the first half was ugly. I actually thought they moved the ball relatively
Yeah.
well in the first, but as you mentioned, the two missed field goals by Jake Elliott really cost them that, because Jake Elliott had 2 tries at the second one, because I think Washington got a penalty, gave him the first down. They got a little closer, and he still missed it, and he still missed it right or left. But yeah, the Eagles went down in this one 10-7. But then I thought their first drive of the second half, I think, was really tone setting. 17 plays, 83 yards, 10 minutes of clock. Those are the drives that we saw last year, them just rattle off these little chunks and sort of just deflate teams. And that's exactly what they did. It was a lot of Saquon Barkley. He had one of his best games of the year, 21 carries, 132 yards. Really dominated this game, especially in the second half. Then on the drive following that touchdown, you look at it, and it's a big play from the defense as well. Cooper DeJean had a big interception, set them up in short field, and the Eagles capitalize on that. And in 2 possessions, it goes from 10-7 Washington to 21-7 21-10 Eagles. And yeah, Saquon Barkley capped that drive off with a 12-yard rushing TD. And yeah, then to really, I think, end things, it was a 4-play, 80-yard drive capped off by a 22-yard run from Tank Bigsby to really end things off. The Washington scored a late TD, but ultimately amounted to nothing. But yeah, 29-18, probably again a little bit, especially the first half, a little bit closer than you would have liked. But again, it's a division rival, and Marcus Mariota also exited this game with a concussion, I believe, and then they couldn't really do anything after that.
Yeah.
Josh Johnson came in, who's played for I don't even know how many teams at this point in his NFL career, and they couldn't do anything with Josh Johnson at the helm. They couldn't do much with Marcus Mariota at the helm, but Marcus Mariota, I think, got a concussion. Then I think his hand got stepped on or something like that. He left the game. But this Philadelphia offense, 207 yards on the ground. They got Saquon Barkley rolling. Jalen Hurts' legs were a factor in this one as well. Devonta Smith got the ball a lot. And this was probably, in terms of an offensive recipe, it's what you're looking for. Jalen's not going to throw for over 300. He had just under 200 and 2 TDs, which is if you look at this game, it was very similar to a stat line you would have seen from last year's contest as well. But offensively, you still want to see them put the ball in the end zone. And obviously, they're going to play the Commanders again in 2 weeks. But I want to see them against the Buffalo Bills team. You want to see this Eagles team going up against a team that actually has merit right now. Because, yeah, you're going to beat the Commanders. You should beat the Commanders. The Commanders are awful. They're down to their now 3rd-string QB. And they just haven't been able to do much all year. They've been plagued by injury. Let's see this team up against a Buffalo Bills team, up against an MVP candidate in Josh Allen, against a guy who's really been humming all year long, and see what this defense can do against them, and see what this offense could do against the Buffalo Bills defense that has struggled at times against the run this year. But for the most part, they're going to battle, they're going to fight, and you want to see this Eagles team go up against a team that actually, is going to be a playoff team, because the last time you saw that was the Jalen Hurts 5-turnover game where they lost to the Chargers. But we'll see what happens. But again, a good much-needed win by them, a good showing from the offense, probably what you want to see going forward. But let's see them against a playoff team now.
I agree. In this game, also kind of crazy, a huge fight breaking out in the 4th quarter after a 2-point conversion by Saquon Barkley. I think 3 players were ejected to Commanders, 1 Eagle, I want to say. But yeah, I just remember I looked away for a second. I came over, and there was a huge pile of players just going at it. So even though the Commanders are already out of the playoffs, already were going into this game, it's still a rivalry game, and it was a very heated game at that. But like you said, I want to see them play a really good team too. Not only is Josh Allen doing amazing, but James Cook, I mean, wow, what a running
he had a
back
game
he is.
last week.
I want to see them try and stop a guy like that, because the Bills going to the postseason with that win against the Patriots, they look pretty. I know we talk about not really knowing who's going to do too well in the AFC, but I think the Bills are one of the stronger contenders, especially after that big comeback win against the Patriots, where they were down 21 points, 21-0 in the second quarter and came back and won it. Shows the resiliency of that team, but I think this will be one of the most watched matchups of the season, just based on the caliber of each team, a reigning Super Bowl champ, reigning MVP going at it. And I think whoever wins this one, it says a lot about that team's future going into the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, and the Eagles, the one thing the Eagles have struggled at this year is they've struggled to stop the run at times. Buffalo's going to run it right at you. I can attest to you firsthand. They are going to run it right at you, even if they find success with just 2 plays and they keep running those 2 plays for the rest of the game, because that's what happened against Pittsburgh. But this Buffalo team is going to run it. That's one thing that has changed from Buffalo in previous years. They are not afraid to mix it up. They're going to get physical. They're going to want to run the ball downhill. James Cook had a huge game last week against the Cleveland Browns, and I'm hoping that carries over to the Steelers matchup against Cleveland. But Buffalo, again, Josh Allen, they don't have the weapons that they have on the outside that they've had in years past. They haven't really found a way to replace Stephon Diggs. That's been a big issue for them, but they've relied on a committee of players. Khalil Shakir is the guy to really watch out for on this Buffalo's outside game, because he can catch the ball short. He's a guy who can make people miss in space. He's tough as nails, but he's a guy who can create plays on the outside. And then they have their seam buster, Dalton Kincaid, as he's going to try and attack this Eagles defense down the seam, and as well as trusty old Dawson Knox there. This is a Buffalo team that likes to get the tight ends involved. They like to. They're one of the teams that's more involved in running these more heavy formations and getting success with them. But yeah, you want to see this Eagles team go up against an actual offense, because they haven't in the past couple weeks. They've gone against two backup and 1 third-string QB, and Kenny Pickett, and then Marcus Mariota and Josh Johnson. You want to see them going up against a high-caliber QB, because right now they're going to have a home playoff game, but you want to see this team go up against playoff-caliber competition, because this team needs, I'm sure the fans, they're not going to be satisfied with just beating the Commanders.
Yeah.
You're not facing the Commanders in the playoffs. You want to see the Eagles go up against an actual high-caliber offense, and a team with some playoff pedigree and some talent on both sides of the ball can give you difficulty. And that's exactly what this Buffalo Bills team is going to be, with them still having a chance to even clinch, having a chance at their division, because I know it's slim, but New England, if they lose to both the Dolphins and I think Jets in the coming weeks, Buffalo technically still has a chance to win this division, despite the way both teams have played. And both of those teams, I don't think having either of their QBs due to them being benched.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again could be easy wins for the Patriots, but again, divisional teams. I say it all the time. It's really, you never know. I think, who was it that did the Dolphins beat the Bills this year too? Yeah, so you really never know. But definitely, I think the Eagles' toughest test this year coming up against the Bills, a really good indication of who's the stronger team, who has the most well-balanced team, and going into it, it'll be a really interesting game, and I'm very fascinated to see how this one goes out. We're going to take a quick last break before we talk about the college football playoffs. Round 1 is wrapped up, and we're going to recap some of those games after the break. We'll be right back. All right, we're going to wrap things up here on 28-22 Sports Night by talking about the college football playoffs, round 1, wrapping up this week. We'll move to the quarterfinals starting December 31st, New Year's Eve to New Year's Day. But let's talk about this round. One of the things that I found really interesting are the two teams that were totally. Notre Dame said that they were snubbed, and it was because Alabama and Miami had gotten in. Those two teams winning this weekend, Miami upsetting Texas A&M with a really interesting game, really low scoring 10-3 win. And it was an interception by Miami from Texas A&M that really sealed the deal. But that last touchdown coming in the last 2-ish minutes of the game, that was a really crazy one. I think some of the other ones were to be expected. That Alabama-Oklahoma game a little bit closer than... I mean, I think it was kind of expected for that one to be a close game, but the other ones are pretty big blowouts by Oregon defeating James Madison and Ole Miss beating Tulane. And obviously we have Ohio State, Georgia, Indiana, and Texas Tech already with that week one bye, and they'll be playing in the quarterfinals. But yeah, I think the big takeaway this week was that Miami just looks really good. They'll be playing number 2 Ohio State though, so they're going to need to rack up some more than 10 points to beat the reigning national champions.
Yeah, that was a really tight game. Miami's defense made a lot of plays in this ball game. I think they had 3 interceptions in that game itself. But yeah, these two teams were just exchanging blows late. And I think Texas A&M, their kicker also missed a field goal late in that ball game, or it might have been Oklahoma. But yeah, Texas A&M really lost this game off of turnovers. That's how they really lost this game. I don't think Miami did anything in particular. I think Texas A&M really beat themselves, and they're going to look back at this playoff game at home, at your home stadium, at Kyle Field, one of the tougher environments to play college football in, and to not win that game, to only put up 3 points in front of your home crowd is extremely disappointing. The Alabama-Oklahoma game is wild. Oklahoma was up 17-0 and had full control of this game until late in the first half. They threw a pick 6, I think, and that got Alabama back into this. And after that, Alabama outscored Oklahoma 34-7 to get back into this game, and they really controlled the line of scrimmage. Ty Simpson got the passing game going, and Oklahoma, who looked like they had Alabama what's the word I'm looking for? Had Alabama rattled in this game, and they beat them earlier in the year. Alabama, with a huge counterpunch on that pick 6, got them really back into that ball game and ended up running away with the 34-24. But again, probably the biggest story of this weekend is what to do about the non-Power 5 teams, because Ole Miss and Tulane, they played early in the year, and Ole Miss won 45-10. Well, they won this time 41-10, so I guess it was closer. But
and without Lane Kiffin, so that's
Kiffin.
Kind of, I guess we'll see how they face against Georgia, but
another SEC game there.
Yeah, I guess it says more about the caliber of their players too. But again, they're going against Tulane, so I don't know. Anyways, continue. I just wanted to mention that.
No, you're good. And then we have James Madison, who went to Eugene, Oregon, and was down 34-6 at halftime. Now again, they scored they scored 28 in the second half, but I mean, they're down 30, a playoff game between the 5 and the 12 seed. And again, we have some NEPA representation in this one, as Lakota Dupree, a Lakeland graduate, was in this game. Had 2 carries, 18 yards, and a TD in this game. And he also, again, had 2 catches for 5 yards. But you look at this game, and again, I don't want to dish on James Madison's program, but I look at these 2 games in particular, and I just Power 4 conference football is a whole different task. James Madison is a good team. Again, I think there needs to be some kind of group of 4 playoff, because I truly think that's the only way to fix it. Or, I mean, you put Notre Dame against either of these teams, it's going to be the same result, basically. Yeah. Notre Dame is probably going to stomp both of these teams as well. But you just look at it's just a whole different level when you're facing an Oregon, an Ole Miss, an SEC, or a Big Ten. It's a whole different story when you're facing either of these teams. The only way to make it fair, and I truly believe this, is if you have a Power 4 college football playoff tournament, like they have now with the 12-team college football playoffs, and you have a group of 4 tournament of 8 or 12 of the best group of 4 teams. Unfortunately, I think that's the only way to solve this, because there's just a talent discrepancy. James Madison's a quality program. They have been ever since they moved up, I think, from the FCS. Not taking anything away from them. It's just a whole different level when you're facing an Oregon, a Notre Dame, an Alabama, an Oklahoma. Like, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I feel like the results of that game are what you would expect going into it. If you were to predict the game, it would be pretty much the result of what happened. And it's hard because these teams had such good seasons, but to go out and go against Oregon, an Ole Miss team, it's intimidating. Yeah. You're the underdog, and you know you're probably going to lose that game. I hate saying that, but look who you're going against. 2 teams with really high perennial powerhouses in the nation almost every year.
Yeah, and especially NIL also just brings a whole different stratosphere into this as well, because look at James Madison's budget, look at Oregon's budget. I talked to a friend over the weekend who's at Temple and said they have a $2 million budget to build their roster. They were facing Oklahoma, I think last year, they had a $30 million budget. It's a 15 times difference, and I'm sure it's bigger between James Madison and Oregon. It's unfortunate, but that's the state of college football. And again, these group of 4 teams deserve to be rewarded. I don't see how getting stomped in the first round of the college football playoffs is a reward for them. To me, the only solution is, again, a 12-team college football playoffs for the Power 4 teams, and a 8 or 12-team college football playoff for the non-Power 5 schools. I really think that's the only way to truly solve it, because I don't want to. These Power 4 teams are playing for something. I just don't see this as a reward for them.
Yeah, and when you look at the quarterfinals, it's who you would expect in those games.
It's all the Power 4s.
Yeah, and games you would expect to be more close. Yeah. We're going to wrap things up here tonight on 2822 Sports Night, sponsored by Hyundai, but we're going to talk a lot more about this tomorrow and preview some of these matchups. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock.